Hello and welcome to English for Philosophy students. And our book is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Today we are in the second lesson of rule number 4. And this is lesson 15 of the entire book. Okay, let us begin. We are not equal in ability or outcome and never will be. A very small number of people produce very much of everything. The winners don't take all, but they take the most. And at the bottom is not a good place to be. People are unhappy at the bottom. They get sick there and remain unknown and unloved. They waste their lives there. They die there. In consequence, the self-denigrating voice in the minds of people weaves a devastating tale. Life is a zero-sum game. Worthlessness is the default condition. What but willful blindness could possibly shelter people from such withering criticism? It is for such reasons that a whole generation of social psychologists recommend positive illusions as the only reliable route to mental health. Their credo: let a lie be your umbrella. A more dismal, wretched, pessimistic philosophy can hardly be imagined. Things are so terrible that only delusion can save you. Okay, as you remember from last week, we were talking about a voice in your head criticizing you. And you remember the title of this entire section is The Internal Critic. So let's put in context. We are speaking of a voice in your head that says to you, you are no good. Someone else is better than you. Okay? And now he is looking at what the truth is. The last thing we saw last week is that standards are necessary. Since standards are necessary, some people will be acceptable and some people, it's not that people are acceptable, some performances, some behavior, some product that you make is acceptable and some is not. And there is a voice in your head that says you are not the best. Someone else is better. Okay, so the truth is we are not equal in ability or outcome and never will be. The SJWs, social justice warriors, insist that we must be equal in outcomes. Everybody must be equal in the amount of money they make. Everybody should be equal in the number of their group that is in any particular privileged set. We must have an equal number of women in science, for example. However, the fact is, the truth is, people are not equal, either in their abilities or in their outcomes, and they never will be, That is a fact, not up for discussion. That is a thesis statement, a proposition. Now he will support it with the next sentence. A very small number of people produce most of everything. A few people produce the most. The winners don't take all, but they take the most. In English, we have a phrase, winner takes all. That means that if 100 people are running in a race, only one person will win and they will get the prize, and 99 people will get nothing for their performance. Winner takes all. Here he says, the winners don't take all, but they take most. Okay, so the few people who are the best at something will get the most return. Not 100%, but the most. So Steve Jobs, who invented Apple Computer, becomes very, very, very wealthy. And the million people who have worked for Apple over the last 20 or 30 years, including the person who sweeps the floor of the building, they get a salary, but they don't become a billionaire. Steve Jobs becomes the billionaire, and the guy who sweeps the floor makes minimum wage. Winners take all. They don't take all, but they take the most. And the bottom is not a good place to be. The bottom, the guy who sweeps the floor may be at the bottom, but really he's not at the bottom. The homeless person who has no job is at the bottom. The guy who makes minimum wage is not at the bottom. So the guy at the very bottom, the bottom is not a good place to be. Homeless, unemployed, on drugs, something like that. More support. People are unhappy at the bottom. They get sick there. They remain unknown and unloved. So nobody knows the name of the homeless guy on the corner. Nobody loves him. They waste their lives there. So they spend their lives for no return. They die there at the bottom. In consequence, the self-denigrating voice in the minds of people weaves a devastating tale. So what is the tale? First of all, it's in consequence of all this, of all the people at the bottom, that the tale is devastating. Because the voice is telling you, you are not at the top. You are near the bottom. You are worthless. There's a million people better than you. That's the voice in your head. And the voice may even be saying, you belong at the bottom. And this is devastating because of all of these things. Unhappy, unknown, unloved, sick, death. So, in consequence. The self-denigrating voice in the minds of people weaves a devastating tale. What is the tale? That life is a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game means that in this interaction of life, if you get a benefit, I will lose that benefit, equal and opposite. So if you add your gain and my loss, it comes to 0. Anybody who is rich is taking directly away from everybody else who is poor, because there is a 0 sum. That is what the voice in our head is saying. That is one of the things it is saying. Worthlessness is the default condition. Default means everybody is worthless except a few exceptions. Most people are worthless, and then we cherry pick a few exceptions to the rule. But willful blindness could possibly shelter people from such withering criticism. So, if you have that terrible criticism, what can save you? The only thing that can save you is willful blindness. What else? If the truth is that you belong at the bottom, you must simply close your eyes and choose to be blind to that fact. Willful blindness is the only thing that can save you from this terrible reality. It is for such reasons that a whole generation of social psychologists recommended positive illusions as the only reliable route to mental health. It is for such reasons. What kind of reasons? These. That people think life is a zero-sum game and worthlessness is default. Those reasons. That a whole generation of social psychologists, so all of the social psychologists in the last 20 years have recommended that people take on positive illusions. In other words, tell yourself nice sounding lies. I can tell myself I am young and beautiful. I am appealing. I am lovable. I am sexy, even though I am 58 years old. Tell myself these things to make myself feel better, although I know it's not true. They say positive illusions are the only reliable route to mental health. The only way I will be mentally healthy is if I tell myself nice sounding lies. Their credo? Whose credo? The social psychologists. Credo means something they believe. Their credo? That you should let a lie be your umbrella. An umbrella is your shelter against the rain. The rain is coming. You are worthless. So you must shelter under a lie that says you have significance. A more dismal, wretched, pessimistic philosophy can hardly be imagined. We cannot imagine anything any worse, basically. This is the worst philosophy you could ever imagine. That things are so terrible that only delusion can save you. So the main idea is we are not equal, and the voice in our head is saying that if you are not the best, you belong at the bottom. The bottom is so bad that no one wants to be there. So the social psychologists say, tell yourself a lie. That will make you happy. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. I'll choose another color. We'll go to red. Here is an alternative approach. Alternative to the previous paragraph of telling yourself lies. Here is a new idea. And one that requires no illusion. So that's good, right? If the cards are always stacked against you, perhaps the game you are playing is somehow rigged, perhaps by you, unbeknownst to yourself. If the internal voice makes you doubt the value of your endeavors, or your life, or life itself, perhaps you should stop listening. If the critical voice within says the same denigrating things about everyone, no matter how successful they are, how reliable can it be? Maybe its comments are chatter, not wisdom. There will always be people better than you. That's a cliche of nihilism. Like the phrase, in a million years, who's going to know the difference? The proper response to that statement is not, well then, everything is meaningless. The proper response is, any idiot can choose a frame of time within which nothing matters. Talking yourself into irrelevance is not a profound critique of being. It's a cheap trick of the rational mind. Let's go back to the beginning of the paragraph. Here is an alternative approach. Remember, you have a transition between paragraphs from main idea to main idea transition. Here is our transition. Alternative to what? Alternative to positive illusions. Okay, here's a new idea, and an idea that requires no illusions. That's good. If the cards are always stacked against you. In English, we have a phrase, maybe the cards are stacked against you. In the past, in the West, the Wild West, people used to play cards for money, gambling. And you had people who would stack the deck in advance to put maybe the high cards in a certain place so that they could cheat and they could make sure they won or their partner won and you got bad cards all the time. This was cheating. The deck is stacked against you is just a phrase that means it is not fair. It is not a fair system. You cannot win, no matter how good you are. So, if the cards are always stacked against you, so if you feel that the system is always unfairly prejudiced against you, so that nothing you do can ever succeed, even though you do a good effort, if that is the case, perhaps the game you are playing is somehow rigged. Rigged means set up to be unfair against you. Perhaps by you, unbeknownst to yourself. Listen to the pronunciation of unbeknownst. Unbeknownst to yourself. What that means is, first of all, you have it to someone. Unbeknownst to Charlie, someone else is doing something. It means that Charlie doesn't know. So perhaps you yourself are stacking the deck against yourself without knowing it. Maybe something you're doing, another phrase we have is shoot yourself in the foot. Maybe you are shooting yourself in the foot. Maybe something you are doing is causing you to fail and you don't know it. Unbeknownst to you, you are stacking the deck against yourself. If the internal voice makes you doubt the value of your endeavors, or makes you doubt the value of your life, or makes you doubt the value of life itself, any of those things, your endeavors, your life, or life itself, if the voice in your head makes you doubt that these things have value, maybe you should stop listening. Realize with your conscious mind that this voice is not telling the truth. If the critical voice within you says the same denigrating things about everyone, no matter how successful they are, then how reliable can it be? So if this critical voice is constantly saying negative things, it's not reliable, because life is good for some people. So if it's constantly saying denigrating things about everything, that's not objective. It's not reliable. Maybe its comments are chatter, not wisdom. Chatter is just meaningless speech that has no value. Chatter, not wisdom. There will always be people better than you. Maybe it's saying this. In fact, maybe it's true, but that doesn't mean nothing matters. Okay, so there will always be people better than you is a cliche of nihilism. So the nihilistic philosophy says this. The nihilistic philosophy also says, in a million years, who's going to know the difference? Nihilism tells you that your life, your endeavors, and life itself are meaningless, because in a million years, who's going to know the difference? And there will always be someone better than you. So if these things are being said to you in your ear, the proper response to those is not, well, everything is meaningless. Rather, the proper response is, any idiot can choose a frame of time in which nothing matters. You're stupid for saying this. And talking yourself into irrelevance is not a profound critique of being. Notice capital B, being. That means existential being, the way things are. So you are not a wise philosopher if you are able to talk yourself into believing that you are meaningless. Rather, talking yourself into believing that you are irrelevant is a cheap trick of the rational mind. It's like a card trick that can easily be learned, but it is not profound. So, that finishes the section called the internal critic. And the final answer is, don't listen to him, because he is not profound, he is not wise, and he says the same denigrating things about everyone. Now we move on to a section called Many Good Games. And I want to choose another color. We'll go with green this time. Many good games. Let's read. Standards of better or worse are not illusory or unnecessary. If you hadn't decided that what you are doing now was better than the alternatives, you wouldn't be doing it. The idea of a value-free choice is a contradiction in terms. Value judgments are a precondition for action. Hold on. I was trying to get it to erase, but it won't work. Okay. Value judgments are a precondition for action. Furthermore, every activity, once chosen, comes with its own internal standards of accomplishment. If something can be done at all, it can be done better or worse. To do anything at all is, therefore, to play a game with a defined and valued end, which can always be reached more or less efficiently and elegantly. Every game comes with its chance of success or failure. Differentials in quality are omnipresent. Furthermore, if there was no better and worse, nothing would be worth doing. There would be no value and therefore no meaning. Why make an effort if it doesn't improve anything? Meaning itself requires the difference between better and worse. Oops. How then can the voice of critical self-consciousness be stilled? Where are the flaws in the apparently impeccable logic of its message? Okay, let's go back. See if I can get it not to go small again. Okay. Standards of better or worse are not illusory or unnecessary. So, standards, meaning a job must be done to a certain standard of excellence or it is worthless. You must get at least 90% right to pass a test. So standards of better or worse are not illusory, nor are they unnecessary. We spoke of that last week. You have to have standards, and they are actually real. They're not just a trick of our minds. This is a thesis statement. Now he will support it with a sentence. If you hadn't decided that what you are doing right now was better than the alternatives, you wouldn't be doing it. So what you are doing right now is watching this lesson. In a larger context, you are trying to improve your English, and you are trying to study a book which will help you improve your life. The alternatives to what you are doing, you could be taking a nap, sleeping. You could be watching television. You could be robbing a bank. There are many alternatives. You chose to watch this lesson because you thought it had the most value. So you have a standard of value, and you made a value-laden choice. The idea of a value-free choice is a contradiction in terms. Obviously, you never choose without some sense of what is more valuable and what is less valuable. Value judgments are a precondition for action. If you do not value something, you will not act. We always act. We always act in order to achieve a goal that we value. Furthermore, every activity, once chosen, comes with its own internal standards of accomplishment. Okay, furthermore is a positive conjunction, so it is not drawing an opposition, it's saying more support in the same direction of this up here, thesis. Every activity once chosen Once you choose your activity, the activity comes with or has its own internal standards of accomplishment. So based on the activity, you know what you must do in order to accomplish your goal. If something can be done at all, it can be done better or worse. He is articulating the nature of reality to a world that has been confused by an idea of equality that is values free. Okay? So, to do anything at all is therefore to play a game with a defined and valued end. By play a game, he simply means participate in an activity. He is using the word game metaphorically. In English, we say, "What's your game?" That means, what's your job? What do you do? What makes you an individual? What is characteristic of you? What's your game? So, to do anything at all is to play a game with a defined and valued end. So it's more about the fact that the activity has a defined and valued end, a goal, which can always be reached more or less efficiently and elegantly. So you can achieve it efficiently, meaning fast and with little effort, or you can achieve it elegantly, which means in a way that has beauty as well as efficiency. So, the way you do any activity can be either efficient and accomplished, or elegant and accomplished, or both and accomplished, or you can fail and not accomplish it. Every game, meaning every activity that you could possibly do, every game comes with its chance of success or failure. You can succeed with any goal or you can fail. That is because we have a standard. Differentials in quality are omnipresent. So this is quality. There is no values free. Everything we do and everything we possess can be of a better quality or a worse quality, including everything we are. I can be a little bit good at playing the piano, or I can be Mozart, or I can not play the piano at all. Differentials, meaning differences, are omnipresent. They are everywhere. Furthermore, again, a positive conjunction that says more of the same is coming. Furthermore, if there was no better and worse, then nothing would be worth doing. If I am as good and happy and content sitting here doing nothing as I would be if I completed this class, teaching this class, then I would sit here and do nothing. But the truth is, it is better for me to finish this class. And when I finish, I will have a serotonin-fueled experience of completion. And that is a reward. I will feel good about myself. That is a good thing. That is a value. If there were no better and worse, oh, look at that. It turned on. It turned on the eraser. If there were no better and worse, then there would be no reason to do anything. Nothing would be worth doing. There would be no value, and therefore no meaning. Without differences, there would be no meaning. Remember our first sentence of the lesson today, something to the effect of, we are not equal in ability or outcome. This is politically incorrect, but it is good. It is good not to be equal, because if there were no differentials in quality, there would be no reason to do anything. And there would be no meaning in life. Why should we make an effort if it doesn't improve anything? This is the problem with communism and socialism. The man who works hard and smart loses all of his produce. The man who is lazy receives the same amount of produce from the government as the guy who works hard. So why work at all? And then there is no production. And everybody starves. Meaning itself. So meaning requires the difference between better and worse. There is no meaning if there is no difference between better and worse. How then can the voice of critical self-consciousness be stilled? So in other words, how can that internal voice, which is always critical and self-conscious, how can it be silenced? How can we stop hearing it? Stop listening to it? And where are the flaws in the apparently impeccable logic of its message? This is the beginning, probably, of the transition into the next paragraph. I pointed out for your writing. Sometime you will want to write the way Jordan Peterson writes. Someday you will want to write effectively. And to do that, you must transition between your ideas. So here he is asked a question, and he will answer it in the next paragraph. He is setting up his transition. 2 questions. How can the voice be stilled? And where are the flaws in this apparently impeccable logic? It seems like the voice is correct. It says, I'm at the bottom, therefore my life is meaningless. That sounds right. Where are the flaws in the logic? Let's look on to the next paragraph. Maybe I'll just read it and not go into it. Let's get another color. We'll try red. I'll read. We might start by considering the all too black and white words themselves. Success and failure. You are either a success, a comprehensive, singular, overall good thing, or its opposite, a failure, a comprehensive, singular, irredeemably bad thing. The words imply no alternative and no middle ground. However, in a world as complex as ours, such generalizations, really such failure to differentiate, are a sign of naive, unsophisticated, or even malevolent analysis. There are vital degrees and gradations of value obliterated by this binary system, and the consequences are not good. Let's analyze this a bit. Okay, so the question was, how can we stop the voice of critical self-consciousness, and where are the flaws in the logic of its message? Okay, it says we're going to start, meaning he'll have more answers to this question later, but first we're going to do this. We are going to consider the all too black and white words themselves. Notice how he puts together words with dashes to create a concept that has no single word. English is good with that. So he does a good job with this. All too black and white. So if something is black and white, it is a binary. It is either yes or no, nothing in between. And by saying all too black and white, he's pointing out that this situation is too much. It is artificial. It is excessive. So the words success and failure are excessively black and white. Because really, you're not a comprehensive, singular, overall good thing, which would be the definition of success. Success equals comprehensive, singular, all overall good thing. Or its opposite, failure. A comprehensive, singular, irredeemably bad thing. Pronunciation, irredeemably. Irredeemably bad thing, which means you cannot redeem it. It is meaning not, redeemable. You are irredeemable if you are a failure. So these words are excessively binary. They are not complex and nuanced enough to fit reality of a person. So we start by realizing that the voice in our head says, you are a failure because Steve Jobs is a success and you are very different from Steve Jobs. Or you are a failure at piano because Mozart is a success and you aren't like Mozart, so you must be a failure. You're either a perfect success, which is unachievable, or you are a total failure. These words are bad words to use. This is a flaw in the logic of the message. Okay? The words imply no alternative and no middle ground. You are either success or failure, nothing in between, no middle ground, and no other option. However, okay, so this is a conjunction implying something opposite is coming. However, in a world as complex as ours, such generalizations, really such failure to differentiate, are a sign of naive, unsophisticated, or even malevolent analysis. Okay, when you have something in parentheses, you should cut it out first and don't read it to understand the sentence. So, to understand the sentence, we say, however, in a world as complex as ours, such generalizations are a sign of naive, unsophisticated, or even malevolent analysis. You understand that sentence without this clause, and then you bring the clause back in, which I will do right now. Now, really, such failure to differentiate. So, he is saying to make a generalization. That means the generalization is everybody is either a success or a failure. So that's to make a generalization. But really, you're not making a generalization. What you are doing is failing to make appropriate differentiation. That's a slightly different but related thing. Okay, so failing to differentiate between gradations of value is what you're doing when you use those binary words. And to fail to differentiate means you are naive, simplistic. You are unsophisticated. Or maybe you are malevolent. Malevolent means evil and wishing harm, intentionally trying to mess with people. There are vital degrees and gradations of value. Vital means very important. There are very important degrees of value and gradations. Degrees and gradations are more like shades of meaning, of value, which are obliterated. That means it's as though they don't exist in this binary system of success or failure. And the consequences of thinking it that way are not good. Okay, we need to stop here. So this is the end of 15, lesson 15, which is number 2 of rule number 4. And actually we're going to record now for next week. So I will see you next week. Have a good week.